Hi, I'm Sarah, this is Hardcover Hearts, and I'm here on a really wet and soggy Sunday again to film my week of reading wrap-up. And so these are the books that I read this week, what I'm currently reading, and then potentially could read next week based on my mood. I was very frustrated this week of reading, if I'm perfectly honest. I do these things where I read so many books at the same time, and I forgot that when I read a nonfiction book, I'm slower. I don't read them as fast. It's a different pace. I'm not as used to it, so I don't fly through it, unless it's narrative nonfiction, and then I tend to rush. I also have 2 short story collections. And those also require you to slow down, not binge through, read it, absorb it, think about it, come back to another one later, right? And so I was kind of feeling like I wasn't making progress, and it was bumming me out. I wasn't being thrown into a book slump, but it was challenging me because I just felt like I wasn't making progress through. Oh, and I'm also reading a mammoth. So I don't know what I was thinking, like I said. But yesterday, it's been so cold, dreary, and wet that yesterday I just gave up. And I said, I'm devoting myself to a one-day readathon, and I'm just gonna lay down. I'm going to do nothing but snack and read and read and snack and snack and read and read and read and read and read and read. And that's what I did. And so I was able to get a few of these done, which felt fantastic. So let's talk about them. Let's talk about what I got done. So the first one that I finished, Zola is so good and so bad all at the same time. This is The Kill, number 2 of the Émile Zola's Rougon-MacQuart series, French classic literature. This is translated by Brian Nelson, and these are phenomenal editions, these Oxford University Press World Classic editions. So this is written in 1872, and it centers itself in Paris. So in the first edition, we were kind of out in the countryside, and then we've come out of the provinces into Paris. And we have the Emperor Napoleon III is on the throne, and he wants to transform Paris. And so he has Baron Haussmann, who is an architect, reimagining what Paris can be. So much of what we know about Paris is based on Haussmann's reconstruction of it. The really long boulevards, the way it's kind of been set up on a grid, and the rebuilding of a lot of those areas into these beautiful, beautiful homes along those grand boulevards was done during this time. And it plays such a huge part in this story. So I'll go back a quick little summary of what he's trying to accomplish with this Rougon-MacQuart series. He's really looking at family lineage and kind of what comes through in the blood through the generations. And he's looking at two sides of this family, the Rougons and MacQuarts. The MacQuarts are not in this one at all. It's just the Rougons. And the Rougons are so craven. They are so greedy. They are smart, conniving, scheming, and they're able to influence. And they're able to seize opportunities. And that's what happens in this one. In this one, we are focusing on Aristide. Aristide Rougon has moved with his wife and child, and they've moved to Paris. He's trying to kind of ride on his older brother Eugene's coattails. Eugene has established himself and has a really great position in government, and he is coming in and he wants a piece of it, and he's expecting that Eugene's going to help him. Eugene, being a Rougon, is not at all about to do such a thing. In fact, he says, hey, if you actually want to make it here, change your last name, then I might think about helping you because it'll have some distance and I won't look like I'm giving you any special favors as my brother. So he does it. He changes his name to Aristide Sacquard, And as this person, then he gets himself put into a position, which is kind of a lowly clerk position in government offices in Paris. And it's there that he starts to see what the plans are for the way that Paris is going, like the blueprint for how Paris is going to be laid out. And he starts to recognize that he can create a scheme if he can only get the funding, and he can start buying some of the properties that are eventually going to then be bought in order to destroy and take over in order to create these glorious new big, huge promenades. And so he's very wily, very smart, but he's lacking in funds. His wife is not really helpful, and his sister Sydney is there, but Sydney is such a strange character. I really hope that we get to learn more about her, because I can't figure her out as of this book. But she is kind of has her hands in a bunch of different things. She runs a store, but part of the store is more, it looks like part of the store is up front and true to what it is, but that there's other dealings that happen in another part of the store. So it seems like she kind of wheels and deals. She also has a way of getting people's problems solved and then making a little bit for it. So everything is just like a pittance here and there that she's kind of collecting and gathering. But meanwhile, she has a lot of contacts and knows a lot of people. When we open the book, we meet his second wife, Renee, and his son, Maxime. And Maxime has come back from school and is living with them. Now, there is only about maybe 4 to 5 years difference between his wife, his second wife, and his son, which leads to all sorts of interesting consequences. But one of the more shocking, more bold and brazen writing I've ever read has been about that relationship, as well as what happened to his first wife. I mean, Zola is Zola is a psychological master. He just really knows how to write things in a way that is shocking, not just for then, but also for now too. So this was fantastic. I'm going to get into the next one, which is His Excellency Eugene Rougon. So I started that before, put it away, and I'm going to come back to it now. And I'm very excited to do so. So that'll be the second one done. Now, let me go to the book that we're talking about today. So by the time this goes up tomorrow, we will have all discussed this ad nauseum. And this is the second of my author's spotlight project that I'm doing. This is The Evening of the Holiday by Shirley Hazzard. So a group of us are reading all of Shirley Hazzard's fictional work, including her short story collection. We already last month read The Transit of Venus, and we just read Evening of the Holiday. Now, this is a novella, really small, so we're going to start next week. We're going to check in on the halfway mark of The Bay of Noon. So we'll complete both of those this month. This is her first book. This is a novella. This was originally published in 1966. And it's a really tender, difficult, emotional, thoughtful, sophisticated love story about a woman. This woman, Sophie, is half Italian, half English, and she is in Italy to see her aunt, and her older aunt she has a very close relationship with, and she comes frequently to see her. And it's there that she meets a man, and this man is an Italian man who is separated from his wife and children, and they are kind of propelled or pulled into each other's orb and fall in love. But what's so interesting about this book, is so many of my brilliant co-readers have brought up, is the skill in which she talks about the love affair and talks about the emotion in the love affair, And we very soon realize that it's actually Sophie who's in charge. It's Sophie who's setting the pace and determining how this is going to go. But you don't see that at first. But as it starts to come out, it's very interesting how it's done. Shirley Hazzard is just such a great writer. You can read this just at the surface level and have a really enjoyable, thoughtful, great reading experience, which is what happened to me the first time I read it. I was reading this in preparation to go to Italy for the second time, yes, and I just fell in love with it. She just captures so much about the pace and the culture and the climate and everything so very, very well. But then everything else, if you really want to do a close read, she is an author that will delight you, that it will pay off for, that you will be rewarded for spending that time. She's just quite amazing. So this was a fantastic reread, and I could see myself coming back to her over and over again because you're in such good hands with her writing. She's remarkable. Okay, now here's one that was not as successful for me, and you know what? I almost didn't expect it to be, so it's actually okay. This is Filthy Animals by Brandon Taylor. Now, I really admire Brandon Taylor's essays. I really admire his point of view on craft. His Substack, him on Twitter and Instagram is quite amusing. He's a very, very smart man. And I enjoyed his first book, Real Life. But I think I've made mention so many times that short stories and I just don't, we're oil and water sometimes. And I think that to a certain degree, some of it is that I love a good long tome. I love to sink in and really get to know characters and get to know their backstories and feel like I'm taken along with them, and that I miss them when it's done. Like when I close a book, I do want to miss characters. And I can never get to that point in short stories because you're given a glimpse, a vignette, a scene. And a lot of times, if it's successful, it's something that jars you or gives you something, an electric shock or a realization or an epiphany or something. You're given something for that vignette. And often I don't like ending in that abrupt way. So that tends to be, as I've thought long and hard about why I tend to not like short stories, that feels like what it is. And with this, I thought it was opening up with like such a strong way. Like the first story was phenomenal. It was called Potluck, and we're introduced to a group of characters. One of them is this young man named Lionel. This is set in the Midwest. It's like a college town, and there's some ballet people, there's people in the academia, and it's that kind of class of society, right? Academics, artists, that kind of thing. And I found the story poignant. I immediately connected with this character, Lionel. He is someone has been going through emotional trauma. He had tried to kill himself, and he's doing better. He's trying to get out. He was invited to this potluck, and he's trying. He's really trying. But there are a couple people there who spot his weakness, and they kind of dig in, and they kind of get under his skin. One of them is someone who he's attracted to or could potentially be attracted to, and somebody else is more amorphous, and he's not really sure what's happening. And they're together. So that was very, very interesting, and I liked where it was going, and I like how I got a lot of richness out of that story. And so I thought that this was going to be just sets of short stories, but it turns out this is a kind of very loosely connected. It's all kind of in the same place, but some of the characters don't know each other. And the same thing happened to me as always does. I found some that I skimmed through, some that I read and I really didn't like because they were too jarring. Yeah, and so I overall I was left cold. I say it again, damn it. And I was such high hopes. I will say that there's a love triangle that felt exceptionally cruel, and made me angry. And so I guess in one sense, if a book can give you those kinds of emotions and make you feel protective or connected or angry or disappointed, I guess that is a good thing, and I do see the value in that. But those are only a few stories where a couple characters I connected with. The rest of them I just didn't get. So I think this one was a pass for me. But I will read he has a book coming out, the Something Americans, the True Americans, the Real Americans, something like that. So I'll read that. I'll read his novel and see if I can kind of get back on the Brandon Taylor train. But now let me finish with a book that, oh my God, blew me away. I binged this in less than 24 hours. I literally tried to stay up as long as I could to read this because I was enjoying it so much. This is Above Suspicion by Helen MacInnes. And this one I was doing for March Mystery Madness. And I was kind of stretching the definition a little bit. It's defined as a mystery. It's like a thriller spy novel mystery. And it was phenomenal. It was so good. So this was actually written in 1941. And it's set in 1939, and it's set in Oxford. And so it opens up with this woman, Frances, walking to meet her husband, who's a don at Oxford. And she's walking through lanes I know, and she's kind of, enjoying herself. And she could tell that she also has a love of Oxford. So immediately I was drawn in. When she finally arrives at her husband's college to meet him, the porter lets her up, and when she steps into his offices, she sees that there's a man that they know there, and she wasn't expecting him. And it turns out he's snuck in, and nobody knows he's there. His name is Paul, and he's an old friend of theirs, and he needs to ask them for a favor. It turns out that Paul is working with in the spy ring, and he thinks that they've lost one of their very key people, and he asks them to do him a favor. And the reason he wants them to go is they already travel in Europe every single year at the exact same time. So they already have a history of going, so it's normal behavior of theirs to take a trip. They are amateurs. They are not involved in spycraft. They're squeaky clean. They're Oxford people. The husband, Richard, he has a photographic memory and is incredibly intelligent. And so he can remember things and he can puzzle things out very, very well. And Frances is also incredibly intelligent, and she'll kind of rein him in from any wild antics that he may want to get involved in. And most importantly, they will be above suspicion. And so he asks them to start in Paris, and that's kind of the start of this mystery treasure hunt. And they are to go to this one place, and they're supposed to do this set of things. And if it works, someone's going to approach them and tell them where the next place to go is. And they're going to do this 6 times until they arrive to find if they can identify and find the 6th, because that is the person who's been at the heart of everything. And that person has been helping people who are against the Nazis and Jewish people escape from Germany. So it's becoming very, very important that this person is maintained in where they are. And the idea is, are they okay? Can you get a message to them? Can you find out if they're okay? That's all you have to do, is go through these six steps and then come home. And so they're not really sure, but they also know they're going anyway. They really trust Paul, and so they agree to do it. And what then comes is just this wild adventure through Europe, and I loved the places that they went to, the types of things they see, the challenges that they face, because they really don't know what they're doing, but they are intelligent. This was my first Helen MacInnes. It was fantastic. I just breezed through it and loved every single second of it. This will not be my last. She was fantastic. So if you like that kind of thing, this was a great book. So that's what I finished. I'm almost done with this. This will definitely be something you hear about in next week. This is Femina, the new history of the Middle Ages through the women written out of it. This is by Janina Ramirez. It's a beautiful cover. Now this just came out in the US, and I'll tell you more about it next week because I'm close to being done with it. Then, oh my God, I'm loving that. What took me so long? Henry James, Portrait of a Lady. It's so readable. I had no idea. I am reading this with Leo of Leo's Little Book Life on Instagram, and we are marveling at how we're flying through it and all the things that Isabel Archer is starting to face, and all of the things that she's experiencing in Europe, and all of the men that are coming into her purview. Really loving it. We're halfway through. I have no idea where it's going, but delighting in the experience. And I love how this is traveling through Europe. So just like Above Suspicion, this is also a really lovely traipse across the continent as well. So delighted to be reading this. Am still reading this. This is Paris Stories by Mavis Gallant. FYI, not a lot of Paris so far. I think I've read like 5 stories, and Paris barely features in any of them yet. But yeah, this is interesting. It's different. It's different than Filthy Animals. I thought Filthy Animals was going to ruin this one for me, but I think the opposite was true. Yeah, these are not overwrought. They're very finely crafted, but I don't get the emotional charge, which is good because that means I also am not getting shocked or really jolted around. Which is good, but it is giving me things to think about, and so far I'm really enjoying this. But again, taking it really slow. I hope to finish this by the end of the month. Then we're going to be starting, as I mentioned, Bay of Noon, and so that one we're going to read halfway to the halfway mark by next Sunday. So that one I'll expect to be done by the end of this month. Then I need to start this sometime soon. This is Checkout 19 by Claire Louise Bennett. I'm reading this for my In Real Life book club, so looking forward to talking to them about this. And God, this is literally one of my favorite covers of the past few years. I just love it. So I need to pick up this, and then I think the next one I'm going to read for March Mystery Madness is this, Daughters of Night. I mentioned this before. This is Laura Shepard Robinson. So this might be the one I pick up, because apparently I'm really into big books right now. What can you do? All right, so that's it for me for now. I would love to know, have you read any of these? What were your thoughts? I hope your reading has been phenomenal, and I'll look forward to talking to you again next week. Bye.